Hey everyone, I'm Coach Dan Fisher. You're watching this week's Fish Report. We have a very special guest, ESPN commentator Sam Gore. Welcome to the Fish Report.
Thank you, Dan. As I told you before, I have called Wimbledon finals, NCAA championships, but one of the last remaining items on my bucket list is to be on the Fish Report. So excited about that. But Dan, I had a question for you to start. I've heard that if you win the NCAA championship, the administration's allowed you to change the name of the team to the Lions. So this show would be Daniel and the Lions Den. Is that a true statement or no?
That's the first I've heard of it, but I have a meeting with Heather Light coming up here, so we'll add that to the agenda.
The background check and the credit report that you put me through was a little bit of a pain, but I know you got to protect the brand, so I'm happy we're here.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. You've kind of been giving me a hard time about this show for years now, and so it's really cool that you agreed to be on.
In a good way. I
Let's
love this show.
Yeah, I've always appreciated the support, and I just wanted to ask you, this last weekend you were in person. We had 2 5-setters. We beat Notre Dame on Friday, and then had a really close one with Louisville. Obviously, a pretty great atmosphere. Tell us what it's like. For a commentator, the last year and a half has been doing a lot of stuff from home. You were actually able to be there in person. Kind of walk us through that.
Well, being at home, which is basically where I'm talking to you now, is my position when I call, whether it's, I've called volleyball, basketball, gymnastics, softball, all from this spot. And the real drawback to it is just not being able to look where you want to look when you want to see things. So, for example, I'm restricted to the monitor. I'm only calling what I'm seeing on the court or the field. But when we were in Louisville, that was just like sending me to Disney World. It was just an overload of senses. And it was amazing because I could look down at each bench and see what was happening, or I could see what a fan was doing, or if our camera was on a shot, I could look away from where the camera shot was to keep my eye on a player where I had a thought in my head. So I'd way rather be there in person. But we're making it work. I'm actually just shocked at how well they're able to execute the events from home. But from an announcer standpoint, you want to be in the arena. I mean, when I'm in that arena in Louisville, I know that as soon as that point is over, I just lay out because the crowd's going to go crazy either way, and I let them create the emotion. Whereas at home, you find yourself having to create more of the emotion because you don't hear the crowd as loudly as you do when you're there in person.
Yeah, and then it all makes sense. And but specific to that match, what were kind of some of your takeaways that you saw from your angle?
Well, very rarely do you do a match like that is so hyped, and it was. Some people were calling it the biggest match in the country. It was definitely the biggest match the ACC has ever had in the regular season on paper. So I've learned in all my years of doing this, really very rarely do you have both teams show up playing their best when that happens. But this was a case I felt like both teams brought it. I mean, everyone was locked in. I was, for one of the few times in my career, I actually had the thought coming out of a timeout one time, somebody's actually going to lose this match. And I don't want there to be anyone losing this match. This is amazing. I mean, it lasted almost 3 hours, and I could have stayed another 3 hours. It was that high of a level of volleyball, and I was so happy to see when the rankings and the RPI came out that formula and those voters recognized that no one needed to be penalized for that loss. I mean, you guys hit 700 in the first set. It's unbelievable. It's just, I was so happy to be part of it.
Yeah, we had the same feeling as coaches. Usually the losses sting quite a bit, and I kind of shared with the team, said, hey, this one doesn't need to sting the normal way. I think it just needs to remotivate us to keep working and have playoffs in mind. And with that, I guess you've seen a lot of the best teams in the country this year. You know our team well. what's something you like about our team, and what's something you think maybe, that you've seen that, we need to work on moving, if we want to be a team that's there at the end.
Well, I'll answer the first part of your question second, what I like about the team. But my thing, people don't remember or don't realize or don't contemplate enough that these are student athletes, and they're young people that, in addition to this sport that gets all the limelight, they're going to class, they have relationships, they have families, they're not out on their own making a living. And so I always feel like the best thing for teams, or the best teams, are the ones that when they show up to practice and when they show up to compete, they are locked into that moment. And you have such a high talent team. If every one of your players showed up every day and said to themselves as they're walking out on the floor, today I'm going to be the best I've ever been. I mean, there's no telling where. I mean, you could be national champions without question. You could be it without that. But I love what Tony Dungy said when he said very rarely are events and games won by a spectacular play, but by doing the right thing time after time after time. And your players at Pitt already are on a pretty elite level with their skills. If they brought that attitude into every practice and every match, I mean, you're going to be holding the trophy in a few weeks.
I totally agree.
Now, I'll tell you what I like about your team. So for me as a play-by-play guy, I love to storytell. So I was the little boy that would watch the Olympics and would just be fascinated about the background of all the athletes. And I would get into sports that I didn't really care about just because I felt a connection with the athlete. And your team is a dream for me because I have so many options I can go in. I can go with volleyball skills, I can go with academic achievements, and I can go with human interest stories. I mean, you have some pretty elite human beings on your team, not just as volleyball players. I mean, for me, it's way more interesting, the academic achievements of Kayla and Shinaza and some of the others, Serena. And yet I love the fact that
Serena was the valedictorian of Penn State last summer.
I mean,
she doesn't even like to talk about it.
So, and also with, Serena, I will remember this because I saw it on the Fish Report. She has a great Pyrenees dog, which is the only nocturnal dog in the world. Who knew that? So, in Lecator, she can jump out of the gym, but she's getting her master's in management and just has this, you can see the leadership on her. Kayla Lund, I mean, what she's done on and off the court academically and on the court, but the fact that, her great-grandfather was a spy for the U.S. in World War II. I mean, I just have so much information that I can use to make your team interesting to the viewer, and that's what I like most about your team.
Yeah, well, thanks for the kind words.
And you play disc golf. I mean, has anybody dug that up? I mean, I got that on a Fish Report.
I actually just bought a few new discs that I haven't used yet. But it's been a dream as a coach as well to have this much talent, but also be able to coach this same group for such a long period of time. It's been a really unique opportunity, if you will.
I actually think, Dan, you guys should start a beach team in the spring so you can coach them one more time.
Just keep Kylie around for a seventh year.
Right.
Well, awesome. Are you, you ready for a slightly different version of the reel it in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Real quick questions. Number one, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person.
Best piece of advice for a student commentator?
Best piece of advice for a student commentator: let the pictures speak for themselves because less is more.
What was your first ESPN broadcast?
My first ESPN broadcast was a professional tennis ATP Masters 1000 event.
Okay. What sport do you like watching the most besides volleyball?
That would be a tie between tennis and basketball.
And the final one, what are you most grateful for at the moment?
Most grateful to have the job I have. I literally have my dream job, and I love what I do.
Great work. Well, we have 2 games coming up this weekend. We've got Wake Forest on Friday, and then Virginia Tech on Sunday. Sunday, come dressed up in your Halloween costume. They're both sure to be lively environments. Sam, so appreciative of you taking the time to be with us. Thank you so much for being on the Fish Report.
Hail to Pitt. All right.
Hail to Pitt.